Banshees, Muggawumps, and Trolls. Oh my. You'll find those fantastical creatures and plenty more inside the Dolmenwood Monster Book, and I'll be sharing my review right after this. Happy holidays, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'll kick off the Gaming Gang's 12 days of reviews with my thoughts about the Dolmenwood Monster Book. But before I do so, I do want to mention if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG, and to do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal, or become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. So today, I'll be sharing my review of the Monster Book for Dolmenwood from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. This 128-page hardcover is available now. You can pick it up with the PDF for an MSRP of $30. If you want to just get the PDF alone, you can do so for $15 over at DriveThruRPG. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Dolmenwood Monster Book. A couple of things I want to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Exalted Funeral were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. First thing we'll do is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks work very hard to bring this to life, so let's give credit where credit is due. As far as production quality, fantastic throughout. You may have already seen my first two reviews of the three Dolmenwood core books, the player's book, as well as the referee's book. This is the third of the three core books that you need in order to play Dolmenwood, and I have been blown away by the first two. So today I'll be letting you know what I think of the final book. As far as the paper stock, it is excellent. It is nice and heavy. You'll notice the artwork pops off the page here. Love that. Now, as far as the size of the book, it's a little different size than your traditional role-playing game books. So you're looking at almost an inch taller and about a half inch more narrow. So, of course, this will fit easily on a bookshelf. It's just not going to line up with the vast majority of your other role-playing game books that you may own. So just wanted to mention that. I thought it was a little unusual, but I have no issue with it. I know some people out there were a little disappointed that the Dolmenwood books were not the same size as the old school Essentials books. I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. Although, funny enough, the adventures for Dolmenwood are those same A5 sizes. I don't know why, just happen to be. So this is a bestiary for Dolmenwood, and we're going to start off with a little bit of information about the monsters overall, and then we'll get a breakdown of how to read the stat blocks and what each thing will represent, and then we'll dive on into the bestiary. So this is going to be divided into monsters of Dolmenwood, and then we will have a section which will tackle some NPCs that you might encounter, as well as adventuring parties and some of the characters that you might find within those adventuring parties that maybe they're rival parties that your player characters will run up against. So keep that in mind. We've also got a section with beasts. So we get our traditional bears and horses and so forth covered in those pages. Those pages don't have a bunch of images for each and every item because almost everybody knows what a bear looks like. So there is that. So as far as the actual entries themselves, we're going to start off with a bit of information about the creature. So let's take a peek at the Banshee here. Drifting incorporeal shades of frost elf ladies, cruelly slain in ancient wars with mortals, haunt desolate moors and hills, seeking vengeance on the living. It is medium undead. It is sentient. It is chaotic. It is level 7. It's an armor class 19. Its hit points 7d8. So those are the hit dice. We also get the average hit points if you just want to use that. We've got the 5 different saves from Dolmenwood. So we've got their save numbers here. They have a couple of attacks. One is touch, which also has a chill effect. So that does 1d8 plus chill. It's a +6 to hit. And then they have a wail that they can use once per night. And if the player characters fail versus a doom save, they will die. We get the speed, morale, and the experience points for defeating a Banshee. You will encounter one Banshee. You will not encounter bands of Banshees. There's a 10% chance it will be found in its lair. Its behavior, coldly brilliant, bitter, vengeful. Speech, rasping whisper. High elfish and old woldish. Has no possessions, but it does have a treasure hoard, and these would be the tables that the referee is going to roll on. It is undead. It is silent before attacking. It is immune to biological effects, such as disease and poison, and mind-altering spells. It is immune to cold-based attacks and regular weapons, so it can only be harmed by silver, magic, or magical weapons. It can pass through walls, doors, and other solid objects because it is incorporeal. And then, of course, we have dark sight, so it can see without any light. The chill touch, which once again, that is the additional aspect of its touch attack, will cause the victim to lose 1 point of strength. If they're brought down to 0 strength, they will die. And that lost strength is recovered at daylight. It can use a wail once per night, all within 30 feet, must save versus doom or die. And then if killed, before evaporating in the mist and vanishing forever, the Banshee curses her slayer to meet their doom. Unless a curse is removed, the character automatically fails their next saving throw against a deadly effect, such as death, petrification, and poison, so on and so forth. One other aspect of the monster entry that's really cool are these little random tables. One is encounters, one is traits, one is layers. And I love the fact that just these little random tables here will make each experience that the player characters have with a Banshee much different. I thought that was a really nice little addition to toss in. So, as an example, one of the encounters would be closing in on a lone friar behind a tree, holding forth his holy symbol. Traits: seductive, youthful beauty. Layers: a pool of dark water in which the faces of dead warriors can be seen. Nice additional flavor to the encounter itself. In fact, your player characters aren't necessarily going to run across a lot of Banshees in their adventuring, no doubt. But still, one Banshee is going to be different than another. And you might have your player characters encounter a second Banshee down the line and not realize it's a Banshee because of those traits. because of the encounter itself. So we'll have a variety of these different creatures. Artwork is excellent, which is something I've found throughout all three of the Dolmenwood releases I've had an opportunity to take a peek at so far. Another aspect of the monster book that I love is it just gets right to the point. I can read through a one-page entry and I can have a really great feel for how I'm going to run an encounter featuring one of these monsters. As far as the actual entries themselves, we do have some traditional fantasy creatures, such as the Banshee we just took a peek at. We've got skeletons, we've got trolls, but they are different than your just book standard D&D or Pathfinder entries. I love that. And then, of course, we have very unique creatures which are going to be found only in Dolmenwood, such as the Red Slob. It is a semi-sentient mass of noxious, bubbling crimson ooze that lurks in branches, waiting to drop on victims. They covet with avaricious fervor, sometimes collecting gems. Nice. The giant snail psionic. We have the giant snail, which is a mutant, the specter, and so forth. Here we've got our troll, the witch owl, different worms, because we don't have traditional dragons in Dolmenwood. Those are essentially the worms. Then we get into our appendices where we've got our adventures. So as I mentioned, we get stat blocks for NPCs that the player characters might encounter in the woods. Breakdown of adventuring parties who might be found in the wilds of Dolmenwood. And then we'll get into our more traditional creatures, although not all of them are naturally occurring animals, such as the giant fire beetle or the gelatinous ape. But these are in the beast category, essentially. Something else that's really nice about the book, take a peek here. We've got our encounters. We've got encounter reactions. What is the creature doing when you encounter it? I love that. That is very cool because I talk about it all the time. There are way too many fantasy role-playing games where it's as if the creatures and NPCs that the player characters run across are just waiting around to be killed for their treasure and experience points. That's not the case here. We had some random encounter tables. And then we have a breakdown, monsters by type and monsters by level. Very nicely done. So that is a peek inside the Dolmenwood monster book from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I have just absolutely loved Dolmenwood and the first two books that I've taken a peek at. And I've got to be honest, I love this third book as well. Now, my favorite book out of the bunch is the campaign book. I gave it a 10 out of 10. It is that good. It is fantastic. I'll tell you what, this monster book, pretty close to that campaign book. Production quality is fantastic. Artwork inside is excellent. Paper stock, really, really nice. It is a stitched binding. This book is going to hold up. As far as the entries themselves, all of the creatures are very interesting, very unique. It's not just your standard goblins and kobolds and skeletons that we see recycled constantly in fantasy role-playing games. Not to say I've got an issue with goblins and kobolds and skeletons. It's just with most fantasy role-playing games, the creatures tend to be very similar in their stat blocks, in their approaches. That is not the case here. And then we've got some really, really unique beings that the player characters can encounter in the wilds of Dolmenwood. Should also mention, you need to have all three core books in order to use Dolmenwood. but I could see someone using this monster book for an old school Renaissance sort of role playing game, or possibly Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral's own old school essentials with some tweaks. So you could utilize it, but there's going to be a little bit of work ahead if you want to use the monster book for another old school Renaissance sort of role playing game. I definitely dig this. I think it is a no-brainer to add to your collection if you're already interested in Dolmenwood, and it's worth a peek, even if you don't have an interest in running Dolmenwood per se, but using some of Dolmenwood in your other old school Renaissance role-playing games. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Dolmenwood Monster Book a 9 out of 10. Very, very nicely done. I am excited to have an opportunity to look at the first 4 adventures of Dolmenwood. So stay tuned. I'll be reviewing those soon enough as well. All right, that is it for this time out. If you liked the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Once again, happy holidays, everyone. Hopefully you tune in for the Gaming Gang 12 days of reviews. And I should also mention, I'll be sharing my favorite role-playing games of 2025 on New Year's Eve, December 31st. So hopefully you'll tune in to check that out as well. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching. Till I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.